came out in 2014 and everyone was like, the game was highly anticipated by the niche Dark Souls community at the time. Being a direct sequel of a game known for being hard as hecky and gave everyone that I'm a superior gamer ribbon, fans were so ready to have their souls beaten, crushed, and killed over and over again, because who doesn't love feeling like a big bully gamer, am I right? Of course, when the game did release, while it was critically received, Souls veterans did take notice of some of the shortcomings. Since the game wasn't directed by Hidetaka Miyazaki, Dark Souls 1 director, the game felt lacking in that twisted imagination sector. You know, that weird atmosphere and monster design that makes you wonder what kind of drugs From Software is on? Oh my god! But it didn't stop the game from being good, it just held it back from really surpassing the original and shooting it in the face. Now, for the record, I will be covering the Scholar of the First Sin edition of the game. While I have played and beaten the original Dark Souls 2, Scholar of the First Sin is really the most recent and relevant version you can find. Also, demographics. And guys, friendly reminder, this is for beginners. And I know half the challenge and quote-unquote fun of Dark Souls is playing blind, but if you want to piss yourself out of frustration and learn this game the hard way, why the heck are you here? But anyway, if you're new to this game, here for basic tips, tricks, and heads up for people who don't know about this game. So you play as the cursed undead, some sad sack who, after having a big dramatic pity party in the rain, decides to travel to a far-off, distant, possibly in the past-future fallen kingdom of Dranlaic. I don't know, you go through this massive hole portal thingy. But you travel to the land to find a way to somehow fix the curse and harass the nice, harmless people living there. Totally, completely harmless. Soon after arriving, though, you stumble across some red grannies who are having an AARP meeting, and they just kind of insult you for a bit, then tell you you're gonna die. And I feel personally attacked right now. Of course, then soon after, you meet the Emerald Herald, who informs you gotta get great souls and surpass the old king because it maybe might sort of help in some kind of way. But Lord knows there's nothing better to do around here. Oh, and there's that pesky rekindle the flame thing again, because life is an endless cycle of death, fire, darkness, and eternal suffering. What, too real? Now, I've said it before and I'll say it again, Souls stories, while very interesting and lore-heavy, are never the forefront of the game. It never gives you obvious context as to why or who you're fighting. It's just fight the thing, you ding-dong. And while Dark Souls 1 and 2 stories do interconnect in a way, by no means do you need to know the first game's story to get into Dark Souls 2, because the story is just kind of chilling on the side over there. But it's what you expect, really. You got your lords, castles, terrible life decisions, dragons, knights, and gaping anuses. But most of the story is told through item descriptions, little mumbles from NPCs, details in the environment, etc., etc. Subtle storytelling is subtle, very good From Software. If I could condense a story into one statement, though, it would be never, ever trust your wife, ever. A message brought to you by Buns. Okay, moving on! Okay, so design-wise, Dark Souls 2 doesn't really go with the big chunk of a world that kind of stacks on itself and is all convoluted like Dark Souls 1. Nah, man, instead, you have a series of branching paths to pick from the start, and after exploring all those paths, the game gets a lot more linear, and then not so linear, and then ta-da, you beat it. That only took like, what, 15, 20 hours? Oh. Now, the world is very, very big, but you'll be on the lookout for bonfires, aka checkpoints that 1, make all the enemies you just killed come back to life when you rest at it, and 2, can teleport to past bonfires. And then you got all this other junk on the side. I don't know, read the things. Now, and being Dark Souls and all, you're gonna die. Of course, it's all part of the game's design, and death is a mechanic, I think. And this game is testing my will to live, I'll be honest. But as you kill enemies, you'll get souls, the game's currency, and you'll be able to spend them at Majula, the game's main hub, where you can buy items, armor, weapons, rings. Oh my god, there's a cat! And you can talk to the Emerald Herald, who will level you up in exchange for souls, after talking your ear off for a good hour. Okay, we get it, lady! So you'll be traveling back to Majula often, but it ain't that bad. I mean, just look at this view! But here's how it will go down. Explore, kill, probably die, kill some more, find a boss, go level up, and you do it over and over again. Ta-da! Welcome to Dark Souls, you scrub. Now, when you're out and about the world, it's important to be very, very thorough in exploring and try to prioritize finding bonfires and shortcuts back to bonfires, aka look for doors, devices, levers, above all else before doing something really, really risky. Get ready to suck it, bucko! But it's important to take in that risk versus reward mindset, because if you die, you lose all the souls you were carrying, and you have one chance to get them back where you last died, or else you lose them forever. So No pressure. Also, Dark Souls 2 loves traps for some reason, so be mega suspicious of everything always, and don't blindly run into things, and trust me, if you see a ton of items or treasure in a big, innocent open place, don't trust it, ever. Or any nice looking place for that matter. Now, while the world has a lot of paths to go down, just know that if you've reached a dead end, chances are you need to turn around and explore another path that you can find the entrance of in Majula. Just so you know. Oh god. Okay, now gameplay-wise, Dark Souls is all about taking it slow, planning ahead, and then panicking and trying to run around and then being killed at the last second. Gosh dang it! But really, regardless of what kind of build you're going for, and we'll get to those soon, taking things slow and trying to take on enemies one at a time and even running past mega tough enemies is probably the best way to go, because being overwhelmed is usually how you get killed the fastest. Oh, yeah, no, that's totally fair. Yeah, of course there are a few things you should pay attention to avoid breaking your TV. First of all, backstabbing is a neat thing and highly effective, who knew? But just so you know guys, when you go for backstabs, make sure it's on that 1/3 part of the back rather than right behind the enemy, because for some reason that doesn't count. Now, staying on your toes and blocking is important, but you see that little bar thing? Yeah, that one right there. That's the let you do stuff bar. And just FYI, you can't be a coward forever, so maintain your stamina carefully and don't always have your shield up, you baby, because your stamina doesn't regenerate as fast and you kinda need it. Also, let's talk about bosses. So these guys are the real targets because you need 4 Great Souls to unlock the rest of the game, and you know you killed one when you reach one of these broken bonfires right after. Bosses are tough, yes, but no, stay frosty, be patient, and memorize the attack pattern. And I've noticed most bosses have some sort of trick to make things easier, like levers outside of boss rooms and the use of the environment to your advantage. And guys, I'm gonna level with ya. While Souls veterans will claim that Dark Souls 2 is the easiest of the series, which I kind of agree with, the game is still pretty challenging, especially for a beginner. So, if you're having a really tough time and aren't that crazy I gotta show off my hardcore gamer skills, death to all scrubs type, boss guides can make all the difference when it comes to enemy weaknesses, because let's not forget, games are about having fun. And this is not fun, and I am not having fun right now. So when you start the game, you have to pick your class, which just determines your starting stats and items, and once you get going, you can choose what to level up in. Okay, mage, knight, cleric. Now this is the starting class for me! Now listen, there are a ton of ways you can build up your character, but just know you do need a certain amount of stats to wield and or have certain abilities. So if you get a cool thing that you might like, see what all you need to wield the thing and put in points accordingly. Also, if you want to know more about starting classes and builds, links below. Now, I can't say Dark Souls 2 is a pretty balanced game, so don't panic too much about where points are going. And hey, if you get all regretty with your build, you can recollect your points at the old lady's hut if you have the Souls Vessel. Also, just saying, vigor, endurance, and vitality are a-okay good stats to throw souls into, and if you want to know more about that info, check the links below. Yeah! Builds aside though, weapons is a thing that hits the enemies after all, and the game is gonna throw a ton of weapons at you. But because there are a ton of weapons, there are a ton of movesets, and it's best to try out everything you get to find the moveset that's right for you. I'm feeling real good about this. And once you find your preferred weapon, it's best to level them up at the blacksmith you can find around the world and in Majula. And I don't care if y'all poop yourselves in the comments for me saying this, because I know y'all have your crazy Souls preferences, like being naked with a ladle, but I highly recommend getting the Fire Longsword here when you start out, because it's good, useful, and you can use it for about half of the game, and also it's on fire. I mean, come on. It's on fire! Now, Dark Souls 2 is materialistic as crap, and you'll be needing and using items along the way. Note that if you're not sure about something, then the item description will typically help you out for the most part. But Estus shards, branches of yore, and keys are very important. The branches are needed to pass people who decide to take naps in front of important things, and they are incredibly inconvenient. And Estus shards are used to increase the amount of uses of your Estus flask at the Emerald Herald for health. And keys, well, because keys open stuff. Now, human effigies are also kind of important, but not necessary unless you want to summon and reverse hollowing, aka that thing that makes you look like beef jerky and plucks off some of your health every time you die. Summoning in NPCs, oh yeah peeps, does make the game a lot easier though, and it's basically easy mode for bosses. But But you too can be summoned in today if you have this thingy that you get from this guy. So go out and do some jolly cooperation, kids. Oh, and you can be invaded by players. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. Almost forgot. Summons aside, though, as you explore, you'll meet people along the way who have quest lines, and depending if you do certain things for them, you'll continue to meet them in the game. It's complicated, though. And while I do recommend doing these things, they can get tricky to get right. So if you see someone cool, you might want to look up exactly how to continue their quest line. Also, you want to be a part of the big boys club? You want to sell your soul to some ding-dong? Well, covenants are the thing for you. Covenants can be found all over the world and let you have access to certain things like PvP areas, armor, a sense of purpose, and just whatever. I don't know, it varies. Again, not necessary, but before committing to one, you might want to see what all the covenant does, so links below. But avoid this one. Just don't do it. Unless you hate yourself. Then again, you might hate yourself, so I don't know, go for it. I won't stop you. Okay, so here are a bunch of tips and things you should know before you get started. Find and talk to the Emerald Herald the second you get to Majula. She's gonna be staring off into the sunset dramatically. Hit the rock on the well for a quick and easy Estus shard. Head towards the Forest of the Fallen Giants first, so like this way, guys. Make sure to talk to NPCs until their dialogue starts repeating, and most of the merchants, after exhausting their dialogue, heads back to Majula, just FYI. Buy life gems from this chick when she's at Majula, because she sells an unlimited amount, so stock up and break the game. Weapon Risens are good stuff, but use them wisely. There are invisible walls throughout the world, and you can open them by holding down the select button in front of them. Don't forget to equip and switch rings for your situational needs, and also for that bling bling. There are 2 ways to get to the Lost Bastille, just so you know. Because you can travel between bonfires, you really won't think twice about taking the long way to areas. With that being said, make sure to revisit this path and talk to the Miracle Lady after you defeat the area it leads to, because it continues the whole rest of the game. Be wary of Hole, and don't try to go down until you can talk to this dude about a ladder, because fall damage is very, very much a thing. You should probably hang on to some boss souls so you can make some boss weapons. Pro tip, you're looking for a bird lady. If things get mega dark, light a torch at your bonfire or use this item. And with that being said, burn the windmill for God's sake! Also in this area, run. Just run. Hug the wall and go for it. Just run. It ain't worth it. Praise the sun! Even though Solaire technically isn't in this game. Want to make a huge game even bigger? The DLC areas are hard as heck and will make you want to cry. Have a good time, guys. The game has a ton of extra bosses, so be sure to check out what all the game has. When you get this ring, be sure to go back and revisit these big doors around the world. And once you get a thing from this big dragon you talk to, go back and check out the creepy trees of the Forest of the Fallen Giants. There, just saved you hours of not knowing where the heck you're supposed to go. Now get good, you casual. So while Dark Souls 2 is considered a step backwards when it comes to design and atmosphere, the game still delivered a fun, complicated, and challenging experience. Dark Souls 2 helped expand the Souls formula further and made it less of a headache for new players to jump in and enjoy the game. And even though the game is seen as the easiest in the franchise, on its own, it's a great game that will still test your patience time and time and time and time again. And I hope this Basics Beginner's Guide makes your gaming experience a little better. So please rate, comment, and subscribe, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Hey, how's it going? Did you like this video? Well, if you did, why don't you go watch another one, you nerd? Also, why don't you go follow me on Twitter so you can keep up to date on what's gonna happen next? Wanna watch me get the footage I need for these videos? Head on over to my Twitch so you can see me play games and talk to chat where no one is safe. If you want to support me directly and be a major part of making these videos, go pledge to my Patreon and waste your money on YouTube trash. And this Patreon shout out goes to Lord KitKat. Thank you so much for your support and help, and don't forget to get good. If you have any tips for this game or any future games, please leave me a comment, tweet me, or send me a message. Later, you big nerds!